Hello, my name's John Woods. I'm the Executive Director of the Allston-Brighton CDC. First, I want to start off by thanking everybody for being here, and welcome to the celebration of the completion of the deep energy retrofit of the Carroll Avenue apartments. You're going to hear a lot about the fabulous work done at this important affordable housing site for many of the people who made this innovative project work, so we hear from them directly. We're tremendously excited by the completion of this work, and when you get a chance, please look. So when you get a chance, be sure to look at some of these boards that spread out across the site, because they talk about some of the actual details of the technical stuff. So I'm going to start off right off the bat by thanking our project funders, and as usual, there's a lot of them. So CDAC, I saw Roberta here, City of Boston's Mayor Office of Housing, Eastern Bank, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, the Massachusetts Development Finance Agency, Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, the Mass Housing Partnership, Mass Housing themselves, Liberty Mutual Foundation, Department of Energy Resources, the Massachusetts Mortgage Bankers Foundation, the Lean Multifamily Program, and our tax credit folks, WNC. Thank you very much for everybody for what you've done here today. We can't take on this type of work we're celebrating today without a strong partnership with our public officials. We're particularly fortunate here in Allston-Brighton to have a very strong group of local officials at both the state and the city levels. So I'm very happy to turn the podium over to Liz Braden, our District 9 City Councilor. Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you, John. I also want to acknowledge Representative Kevin Honan, a former chair of the Housing Committee, who's been a great mentor for me in this area about working on housing issues in the city of Boston. Got the coffee down there. This is so exciting, John, and deep retrofitting, making our affordable housing more energy efficient is really critical going forward, not only on the climate side, but also on the affordability side, because energy costs go up. And if our houses are, if our housing is more well insulated and more energy efficient, it has a benefit to our residents as well. So this is very, very exciting. And I think going forward, I'm very proud to partner with John. We're in contact fairly regularly, and they say, oh, what about this, Liz, and what about this, John? So we go back and forward about thinking about what's next in terms of other projects that we can work on together. So I'm very, very excited to be here today, and want to thank all those concerned, all the investors and all the partners that we have in this work. It's not easy putting together these packages. And John and his team, I know he has a really strong team at the CDC, for doing this great work, and such a benefit to our neighbourhood here in Allston-Brighton.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you. We're really fortunate to have Liz as our city councilor, because I call her up all the time. We talk about different ways to sort of promote affordable housing, and this particular model itself is something that we hope to continue to do. And Liz made a mention of him, but I'm really proud of the fact that Kevin Honan's here today, and I'd like to ask Kevin to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. It's a privilege and an honor for me to be here, and to thank you, John, and your staff for all the great work you do in our community. This neighborhood of ours has very expensive housing, Allston-Brighton, some of the highest rents and some of the highest ownership prices in the entire city. And I thank you for doing your best and leading the way here in Allston-Brighton for affordable housing, accessible housing, environmentally sound housing. I had the privilege of serving as the chair of the Housing Committee for 17 years, traveled all around the state at events such as this, ribbon cuttings, and by the way, I was at the ribbon cutting for Carroll Ave 30-something years ago.
38 years.
Yeah. And I had the pleasure of working with people like Clark Ziegler, who was such a champion all around our state, and all the other people. The housing world is about 300 people in Massachusetts, and everybody works together, and while you may change organizations and jump around, you're still so dedicated and so important. I also want to thank the board, the CDC board. My Uncle Charlie was one of the charter members of the CDC board with Ray Dooley, who worked for Tom Gallagher, my predecessor. Brighton Lou's here to hear Diane, all the other folks who are on the board who spend so much of their time fighting for affordable housing. I remember years ago fighting for 40B and zoning and protecting it, and Clark and Roger and all the others who fought to protect 40B in Massachusetts so we could continue to provide housing. It's always tough, but this neighborhood has been very accepting of affordable housing. This neighborhood, Allston-Brighton, understands the importance of it, and I couldn't have a better partner here than Liz Breeden, who's such a champion of affordable housing on the city council. John, thank you.
Thanks,
Great
Kevin.
to work with you.
Thank you.
Yep.
You know,
Did I say to here too? Did I
yeah,
mention
I was just gonna,
Okay.
I was just gonna acknowledge, I'm blessed with having a board that has been, around for a long period of time, understands, sort of the mission here, which, was to create as much affordable housing and preserve what we got. Kevin mentioned it, but I see Brighton Lou in the background. Brighton Lou's a longtime, board member. Tahir Hussein is also a longtime board member. I just wanna point out, Diane Klein is a board member who has been a tremendous help to me personally as we think through some of these things. Diane is stepping off the board at the end of this year, but we're very grateful for your service, Diane, and thank you as you move forward. So thank you again to my board. You know, as I prepared for this event, I spent some time looking through the old binders that we have that chronicled the creation of this affordable housing. This review eventually led me to a binder from 1987, 38 years ago, and Kevin made a reference to it. When the CDC first purchased this property, we did some rehab and created the Carroll Ave Co-op Corporation, which owned this site up until 2018. The binder that I found documented the construction loan for the original rehab at the site was a stark reminder to me that this project is at the core a preservation project. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I remind people of the importance of preserving our precious supply of affordable housing, but it's always worth repeating. This current project has a big price tag, but it would seem puny indeed if we had to try to create new housing like this in this particular neighborhood of Brighton. The innovative approach Caitlin has orchestrated with her team here to create yet another example of how this older housing stock can benefit from cutting-edge technology is a beautiful thing. But of course, it can't happen without the crew that we've worked with. It's a tremendously stable group of partners that you'll hear from shortly. And you know, I'm standing here and I'm looking at Annie. I wanted to also acknowledge Senator Brownsberger's office is represented here by Annie Mazzola. Thank you, and thank you to the Senator. I'm now very pleased to introduce a gentleman who represents a very early partnership that was tapped into when the site was created back in the late 1980s. In that dusty old binder, I saw a commitment letter from 1987 written on DHCD stationery when Mike Dukakis was governor, and MHP was directly connected with the state agency. Clark and I were talking about this. Although it's my understanding that Clark joined MHP during the Hoover administration, he did not sign that particular letter. However, I think it's fitting and proper that Clark Ziegler speak at this event since it acknowledges the important role that MHP has played in the Commonwealth's effort to create and preserve this precious commodity by adapting to the changing needs of the affordable housing industry. MHP's role on this deep energy retrofit was crucial in making this project possible. So I'd like to ask Clark to come up and say a few words.
Thanks, John. The New Deal was not our idea, but it worked out really well. No, it's great to be here today. I just want to make a couple comments. One is about working with Allston-Brighton CUC as a partner, and another is about the work ahead of us as a Commonwealth around climate change and retrofitting existing housing, because I think both are really important. With respect to the CEC, there has always been, through my entire career, this intense gravitational pull toward the CEC. Part of it was Kevin Honan and his leadership on the committee, and he would never, ever allow us to underserve the Allston-Brighton neighborhood. The second was our longtime board chair, Vin McCarthy, who was a Brighton resident, who also held our feet to the fire. So you guys are special. We're not supposed to play favorites, but trust me, you guys are really special. We've been, I actually forgotten that we were involved with the financing We didn't become an independent agency until 1990, but we worked within state government. I'd forgotten, honestly, that we went that far back with this project. But we've been financing affordable rental housing for the CEC since the 1990s. It's been a great partnership. We also work together on home ownership, home buyer education and support where the CEC is a huge leader, one of the rock stars really in the CEC world. And then most recently working on decarbonization on this project and another, Homes, another project, where we just thoroughly enjoy working with your team. You're really good at what you do. You play a great leadership role, and it's just a complete pleasure to have enough opportunities to work with you. So thank you. The second thing I want to touch on is just around the work we need to do around decarbonization. I think in that world, new construction is kind of the shiny object we all get drawn to. We all want to argue about the new energy code and how much it costs, and we all people know how to build a beautiful passive house building with electric vehicle chargers and solar panels on the roof. The new construction stuff, by comparison, is easy compared to properties like this. But I looked it up last night. Massachusetts has the second oldest housing stock in the country, second only to New York State. Almost 40% of our housing was built before World War II, right? So we're not building nearly enough, and we're only building so much new to begin with. So unless we wrap our arms around how to really effectively decarbonize older buildings, preserve them, work with tenants to avoid disruption, get it right, figure out the right choices, the right technology, the right approach. This is where the action is, and you guys are on the front lines of that, and it's just really exciting to be part of that. Lauren Baumann joined our staff earlier this year as our Director of Sustainability, and unfortunately she couldn't be here today, but I know she's worked closely with your staff, and also Alice Wong and Alma Bell and Rosen are here who have worked with you on the financing. But it's a great partnership. We have a tremendous amount of work to do going forward, and we couldn't imagine anybody we'd rather do it with than you. So
thanks,
thank you.
Doc. Thank you. I'm going to introduce another one of our important partners in just a moment, but and then I'm giving up the podium. So I wanted to take a moment to just sort of acknowledge, there's a reference to Caitlin. Caitlin Robillard is our Director of Real Estate. And none of this could happen without Caitlin making it happen. And she continues to make it happen in all our properties. She's become a leader in the world of taking some of these old properties and saying, yeah, you can make it happen here. So I'm just continuously impressed by the work that Caitlin has done and the network of people that she's pulled together that are represented here today. They get talking about this stuff, and I don't know what they're talking about. But it's all positive stuff. And again, as you walk around this property, take a look. Look at this, the width of the walls here. Feel the quality of the air in here. It's just a tremendous improvement to the quality of life for our residents, and at the core, that's what's the most important part of it. So, Caitlin Robillard, you are a fine human being. When I told that tale of looking at that binder, I mentioned DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, which I still, that's how I deal with this. But it's another reminder of how important that partnership has been between the City of Boston and the Commonwealth. You guys have been there throughout this process, helping us tackle the issues we face when we work on producing and preserving affordable housing. So I'm very grateful for that. Bear with me as I just introduce Amy. And Amy Stintley is the Undersecretary for Strategy and Climate in the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. There you go, Amy.
All right. I'm barely used to it.
Yeah.
All right, we say HLC to make it
HLC,
easier.
I like that. That's easy.
Thanks for inviting me. Congratulations to you, John and Caitlin, on this really amazing achievement. Preserved, renewed, healthy, energy efficient, electrified. These are the things we want to see, and unfortunately, it's really hard to do. That said, you've done it. and you can be a shining beacon, a light for others so that this is not uncommon, it's normalized, right, as we move forward. It's December, so some of you might be reflecting, like, what good happened this year? Well, I don't have to go back to the beginning of the year. I can just go back a few months. So, first of all, thank you to the partners in the legislature, Representative Senator, for working with the Healy Driscoll administration to pass the largest housing bond bill in history so that we can preserve more housing like this. Also the climate bill, so that we can site more renewable energy and distribute more electric vehicle charging and infrastructure. And then lastly, the economic development bill, so that we can be a leader in climate tech. So if you put all these pieces together, and also negotiating the deal with the investor-owned utilities so that anyone on MassHealth or DTA could be automatically enrolled on the discount rate. All of that stuff is really good, and it happened between August and now. So the policy environment, the funding environment, very strong. That doesn't mean it's easy. So thank you, Caitlin, and your team for working through all the different opportunities, capturing them, and leaving nothing on the table. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is me. I will stop.
It's nice. I'll be in the dark. It's fine. Hello, Caitlin Robillard, Director of Real Estate Development at Allston-Brighton CDC. So great to have all of you here and celebrating Carroll Ave. So this was a 15-month project that ended on time and on budget. And I think it's important to talk about the project partners who did that, because I've been getting very nice shout outs, but it's really everybody else who did this. So our project partners, so people who are around the table every week for our OAC meetings. So that was Mike McHugh from Davis Square Architects, Mark Marcelli, Mike Martin, Chris Lennox, and Devin Kramer-Roberts from NEI, Derek Hobson from the Mayor's Office of Housing, Peter Rex from Tierney Development Services, Cliff Geisler and Angela Turco from Maloney Properties, David Levy from Community Square Associates, and especially Mara too, Allston-Brighton CDC. So this was Mara's very first project as project manager. This was her first job out of grad school, and I remember, I think it was her second month, and I was like, I'm not gonna come to these meetings every week anymore. Like, this is in your hands, and she just stepped right up and she did it. And she did a fantastic job.
Yay, Mara.
John already stole my comment on like the thermal comfort. He didn't use that term, but that's my new favorite term. You could say it, but then you have to feel it. So we're feeling it right now, and it's amazing. So that's all the people that I just named who are around that table that paid attention to the details and worked late and answered emails early in the morning and late at night. It wasn't easy to make this happen on time and on budget, but we did it. Oh, and also Judy Cohn Housing Relocation Consultants, huge. So we had folks who moved out of here for 5 months at a time, and the rest of the buildings were occupied. So it was amazing. So took a lot of people, but thank you. And I'm going to pass it on to one of our new favorite people, Benjamin Silverman, from the Department of Energy Resources. He is a residential program manager.
Thank you. It's a real joy to always be constantly invited to these things. Celebrate with this sort of community of expertise and community of funders that have kind of emerged over the last few months and years to work specifically in this space of how can we assist our affordable housing stock in making this transition to the decarbonized, green, post-2050 future that we want. I think, as was talked about before, we know that the majority of buildings that exist in 2050, when we're supposed to be net zero and all those great things, they already exist. And leaving what we have behind is just not an option. So, this group of folks that kind of come together and funding sources that have come together has been, really great to be a part of. This building itself is kind of exemplary of the projects that we want to be seeing across the Commonwealth. solar on the roof, deep energy retrofits and massive improvements to the insulation, heat pumps, all, fully decarbonized, electrified, renewified, a few more things. It's what we want to be seeing across the Commonwealth, and it's great to be part of that, and it's great to help put forward these sort of exemplary projects that others can follow. Thanks to the Allston-Brighton CDC people, you really are leading for us, and really just a great example to point to. We know, things are kind of in flux right now, we know, and maybe things might seem a little dark on the horizon, but at least here in Massachusetts, we're going to continue to lead both the public and private sector working together on ensuring that the next generation of affordable housing is high efficiency, high performance, low carbon, and it's great to be a part of. I also wanted to do a quick shout out to the fact that we have more money coming.
Right.
Always very important, but tell your friends, tell your neighbors.
No, don't.
The Healy Driscoll administration is really doubling down on this effort, so my affordable housing decarbonization grant, trust me, the earlier name was even longer than that. Another additional $40 million, and it includes some funding for some net zero new construction as well. So applications due January 31st, move it. And I look forward to seeing more projects like this. And I'm going to pass it off to Christine Cormier from the Executive Vice President at WNC.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to be here. I really appreciate it. Now, if you don't know WNC, we're a California-based tax credit syndicator. It's a family-owned business that's been around for about 50 years now. I am from Massachusetts, so I was thrilled when I had the opportunity to work on the Carroll Ave apartments. I head up the group that raises capital for affordable housing across the country. Carroll Ave was such a great project, so in my backyard. We put it in a fund with 17 other properties around the country, raised $215 million, put about $9 million into Carroll Ave. So special shout out in the back room over there. Aetna, along with 9 other investors, put capital into this fund, and we're just so happy. And I'm just welling up because my parents grew up right down the street from here, and to see this, and it just makes me thrilled to be part of this. Sincere thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, and Ross Spear now from the Architects.
Thank you. It's been echoed time after time. I think Clark said it really well, that I think Carroll was really a first for an all-electrified building and getting rid of all of those terrible things and having a beautiful result. And it's hard to do in a historic envelope because you're doing everything from the inside. When we're done on the outside, it's gonna look kind of the same. But on the inside, you're stepping into old finishes, you're stepping into units that are already too small, and you wanna insulate them, and you wanna tear out all those systems. So it really is a challenge, and I think Carroll Ave is a great model for moving forward on things. If you look out the window at every other building on the street, historic or not, that's what needs this work. It really is all over Boston and all over it needs to be done on that. So speaking as the architect, I thought I'd cover a few small tidbits of things, and I'll be brief. The critical elements for doing this, insulation, obviously. You need to have some of it, as much as you can, but often these buildings have none. So it's important to get something in there. Second, and even more important really, is the air sealing. We need to seal that envelope. And in a building like this, it's a challenge. But unless you do, all that insulated air is gonna go someplace else. So those are really the two critical things that you work on. Second, old buildings suck. To work in. They do. I mean, the 3 big hitters, exterior, Carroll Ave is perfect for being a typical building. Solid masonry walls, which wick moisture all the way through. Both sides need to breathe, and you need to work the science to make that still work. Then the systems are old and drafty, and they all create holes. That air sealing thing, it's a nightmare. In a building like this, the wood framing of the walls inside the brick is what they call balloon frame, which means typical construction builds floor by floor by floor. Here, they built the walls all the way up. So those studs go 3 stories up, and they create a wonderful air shaft for us to try and seal, along with all the holes left over from the radiators and parts and pieces like that. So a few tidbits of what we're working on, and the real take-home point, and other people have mentioned this, is it really takes a team. You know, we are going to, from the technical side, we're gonna solve every problem that we can, but it's gonna be out there every step of the way. And hats off to Mike McHugh, who was there tirelessly, and the folks who work on that, because it really does take hard work day to day to get it done. You really need a good general contractor, and we were really fortunate to have NEI who was there to solve all these problems. They have a blower door test they have to pass, and they gotta find a way to solve it. And they did, and they did a fabulous job on things. So that's my segue. I'll introduce Devin Kramer Roberts
Yes.
from NEI to speak as well.
Yeah, so I just want to expand on a couple things that Ross had mentioned and others previously have mentioned. So just highlighting some of the new electrical components that went into the building. So we added heat pumps on the roof, and then each unit has FCUs in every bedroom and kitchen and living room in order to allow the residents to have a comfortable climate to live in. And they're all locally controlled with thermostats in each of those spaces, so each resident can kind of control them how they wish. We also added hot water heaters, which give the residents on-demand hot water with mixing valves and recirculation pumps. So, you know, when you go to take a shower, you don't really have to wait for the hot water to warm up prior to getting in the shower. We added a new sprinkler system, updated the electrical in the kitchens and bathrooms, as well as replaced the old fire alarm system. So we really gave the whole building a revamp. And you know, one more thing is that Ross mentioned is we couldn't have done it without New Ecology and Peter Rex from Tierney. They were a huge help when it came to air sealing. I know Ross just gave us a lot of credit, but without them, tireless efforts back and forth, numerous site visits from Hayden here, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So big shout out to the whole team, everybody involved, those behind the scenes, those at the meetings, you know, everyone with the CDC. And so thank you on behalf of NEI. But yeah, this was an awesome project.
Okay, wrapping up. Thank you all for coming. This means a lot to all of us and our residents, of course. There haven't been complaints, so yeah, everyone's happy.
It's a miracle.
But yeah, thanks for coming. Hope to see you guys at our next event. Next one coming up, Brian J. Honan Apartments.
Yeah. Amy, see what you can do about getting us the funding. We're waiting.
But yeah, thank you so much. Feel free to look around the unit, get more coffee, tea, pastries, and thank you very much.
Thank you.